Brejic sat at his dining tent. The female elf sitting across from him as still as the conversation. It was annoying to the shaman. Had he not shown hospitality and kindness to this elf? Why was she content on not eating or talking when he had shown her no ill will? It seemed, at least for now, that the people under the yoke of the false gods wouldn't come willingly. "Brejic will free you, little elf. Don't you worry." The elf just narrowed her eyes and furrowed her brow, causing Brejic to snarl slightly at the unwillingness to thank him for his promise to release her from the controls of the false ones. The tense moment that remained was soon broken by the entry of a gore. "Master," the gore coughed, disease pulsing across its skin. "Pointy ears. Spotted by gores." At this new information, Brejic smiled, his teeth glistening with cruelty. "Gather the herd. It's time to see if they truly want our guest back." As the shaman walked to the tent's exit, he turned back to the mage. "Do not worry. If Brejic cannot free you, Brejic will at least free your mortal shell." And with that, the Bray was outside, barking orders to the various beasts that roamed. Watching the herds hurry into position brought the shaman a measure of delight. At least these creatures had decided to accept the Old Fathers as their true saviors. And as he saw the elf ranks settle amongst the trees, the shaman called out, "Welcome, Brejic's misled friends. Allow me to enlighten you." And with that, the herd launched forward with frenzy unmatched. So this scenario is pretty easy. Victor will be determined by victory points. However, the wooden building that's right in front of the Beastmen deployment zone is Brejic's dining tent. And that building is where the Wood Elf wizard who was captured during their last game remains. So for Skip to regain his wizard, he has to have a unit enter that building and search it for treasure, which will represent them freeing her. And if he does that, win or loss, he will get his wizard back. So there's kind of a two things going on here. So should be interesting. It's a very densely packed terrain setting with the mystery swamp there in the middle, as well as a lot of buildings representing the Beastmen camp that they're hanging out in. So let's go ahead and get into deployment. So the Beastmen force starts off with 5 Chaos Warhounds that are stretched out this way to prevent Wood Elf scouts from getting around. Then he has a unit of 15 Bestigors. In there is Brejic. The Bestigors have just returned to his army after having been deserters during the last game. And I think there's 30 or 40 Gores, additional hand weapon with Mark of Corn next to that. And his BSB is in with that unit. And hiding behind the woods is a half-done conversion for a Razor Gore that he'll be using for that here during this game. Then for the Wood Elves, we start with a unit of 5 Waywatchers camped out in this building. Then there's a unit of 12 Dryads. Next to the 12 Dryads are a unit of, looks like 15 of the Deepwood Rangers, the ones that get additional attacks if they have fear on them. And with that is Falgren Summerfall, his general, a Glade Captain. Again, Wood Elves are going with no BSB, another gamble from Skip. And over here, acting as Glade Riders, are the Arrows of Anath, his Regiment of Renown. They are Glade Riders with the no penalty to shoot arrows, and because they are Regiment of Renown, they also have Devastating Charge. And they're just hanging out there waiting to ambush in come turn 2. And I didn't get a picture of their deployment, but here are 10 scouts that he drops with poison arrows. But the Wood Elves get turn 1, and first thing he does is move around the forest here to take a shot, or to line up shots at the Razor Gore. And the Dryads shoot forward because, for some stupid reason, Dryads are actually bad in the forest. and his rangers stay back. Now, Skip did learn his lesson and is choosing to use the normal poison forest here as opposed to a mysterious one, since that kind of screwed him in the last couple of games. Now, the thing to notice is that single model standing on the hill is actually a altar of Cain, so now those dryads are frenzied, as is anything that goes 6 inches in there. So, no magic on Skip's side, so we go into shooting, and poison shots ruin the day for the Razorgore. So then we go to Beastmen turn 1, and the Bestigors enter the building so that they can loot it and recover 8 gold pieces. And the dogs enter this building and loot it for 7 gold pieces, I believe. Now, just keep in mind with the way our rules work, those gold pieces for this unit are not added to his army's total yet because he does not have a named character in there. So either the unit has to survive the game or he has to have his named character join that unit to cash in. And over here, the Gore herd with the corn mark move themselves up to set up for a charge against the dryads. But they don't want to enter that marsh right now, so they're just lining up there. So Elf turn 2, the scouts enter into the forest to start shooting. The Waywatchers step out of the building. They did loot that last turn, so that's why they didn't do any shooting there. The Dryads succeed their restrain check and back up an inch or so, and the Rangers come out a little bit, so that they can countercharge if the Gore get antsy. And then the Arrows of Anath appeared on the back of the board and moved forward to line up their own shooting. So shooting from the scouts takes off what looks like 3. And shooting from the Arrows of Anath takes off 3 more. So we go into Beastmen turn 2. The Gore herd attempts a charge on the Dryads. Fails and hits the swamp. When they hit the swamp, 2 die from dangerous terrain. And then 3 more are lost at the end of the movement phase when they fail their initiative check and are sucked to their doom. The Bestigors and Brejik end up exiting the tent from this direction, and the Chaos Hounds exit the tower in this direction. So with nothing else going on, the Elves' turn comes, and both the Dryads and the Elves slam into the Gore herd here, and they end up crossing each other to do this so that less of the Elves would end up in the swamp for the dangerous terrain tests that are about to come from it. However, given Skip's luck, it didn't matter because 4 of the 6 elves that had to dangerous terrain died, and only 2 of the 12 dryads that had to did. And I forgot to mention earlier, but the Arrows of Anath tried to charge into the back to support this, and they actually failed their charge, so they stumble forth 2 inches. And the Waywatchers turn to menacingly stare down the dogs. And the scouts decide to take advantage of the gap here and start running towards the tent so they can free the wizard. Almost needless to say, during shooting, the dogs die in droves to the Waywatchers. And then during combat, this is a bloodbath. Really the only thing keeping the elves in this at this point is that statue that provides frenzy is giving those great weapon-wielding elves extra attacks, so they're just slicing through these Beastmen. But as you can see, the Beastmen aren't doing bad back to them. I think the Wood Elves actually lose this. Or no, the Beastmen lose it by 1, but at this point they're stubborn and don't break. So we go to the Beastmen turn, and you can see Brejik has run out of the Bestigor unit and over behind the Dryads so that he can cast Mantle of Gorok on the BSB and hopefully just trash a bunch of dudes. And then at the end of the movement phase, the Beastmen, the Elves and Dryads pass their initiative test, but the Beastmen lose 3 more bodies to the dangerous terrain, or the swamp sucking them down. And during Magic, the Mantle of Gorok went off, so that BSB just lays into... he ends up getting challenged out by the Dryad champion, but lays into him, maxes out on Overkill. There's some other damage done to the Elves. It's enough that the Elves and the Dryads lose. The Dryads break and run off. The Elves stick. Then you just see here after the reform, it looks like there's 2 of the Gores left and the BSB. The Gores are still actually in the swamp. So we go into Elf turn. The Dryads fail to rally and end up within millimeters of the board edge. And all of the Elves notice that Breshik is there standing by himself, so they circle around to ruin his day. And the arrows of Anath put enough arrow shafts in him to take him out. So no more magic from the Beastmen. Then at the end of movement, both units fail their initiative checks against the swamp. The Elves lose 1 guy, and the Beastmen unit loses the last 2. So the only thing left there is the BSB. So we go into combat, and the champion from the Rangers gets murdered by the BSB in a challenge, but there's still 5 Elves there, so they have a rank. They're stubborn and do not break. Then we go to the Beastmen turn. The Bestigors here swift reform, so they're thin enough to make it through these 2 terrain pieces and set up a charge into the flank of that unit if the BSB can hold out. However, in combat, the BSB cannot hold out. They get into a challenge BSB with the General. The General has the Armor of Fortune because the Wood Elves bought that with their gold last game. And Ward saved like a champ. So they lose, unit BSB breaks. The Pursuit takes the Rangers off to the side there, so they're out of the Bestigor's charge range. And of course the BSB dies instantly. And we go into the Elf turn, and the Elf General decides to run out of the unit and into the building and loot it. So the Wood Elves have regained their Shadow Mage. So, way to go, Wood Elves. And then movement is basically a bunch of running around to take pot shots at Bestigors. And I forgot to mention it last turn, but after killing the dogs, the Wood Elves, or the Way Watchers went into the tower. They looted it, got some gold, and this turn they're coming out. And the Dryads fail their rally check and run off the board because we forgot about it up till this point. And during shooting, I don't remember which group this is, but 1 Bestigor dies. And then the Way Watchers open up on the back, and I think 3 or 4 more Bestigors die. Then it is Beastmen turn. I think this is turn 5. Beastmen try to charge the Scouts. The Scouts obviously flee. Beastmen fail the charge and end up where you see them. Then we go into Elf turn, which is Elf turn 6. The Scouts fail to rally and run, but do not run far enough to get off the board. More movement is done, including the few Rangers that are left trying feebly to get out of reach of the Bestigors, and does not look like it's going to happen. And the Way Watchers dip their toes in the river, decide that it's too cold, and stay the hell out. No, they don't actually end up. He moves right up to the edge. They don't go into the river. And more shooting happens, and more Bestigors die. I think 2 more this time. So we go to bottom of turn 6. Bestigors charge into the Rangers in their rear. So yeah, these Rangers are not having a good day. And the Bestigors murder the Rangers and turn around and pose for the camera. And bottom of 6 means the game is over. As the last of the beasts drug away their leader, Falgren Summerfall emerged from the hut that Alenthia Shadowdawn had been held in. The Spellslinger did not look any worse for wear, even being held hostage for the past several days. Falgrim's plan worked well, using sisters to distract the Minotaurs and the Ungor raiders, giving time for the rest of his forces to storm the camp and free Alenthia. The mage was actually smiling as she exited the hut with the glade captain. Brejik was hospitable, Alenthia said. He did not harm me in any way. In fact, he made me tea. It was a very strange experience. My apologies we did not come sooner. It took longer than expected to get everyone coordinated. We shall not be caught unaware like that again. Indeed, Alenthia replied with a crooked smile. She knew she would be put back in command of another small host. She also knew Falgren would be sending his consort with her. She had heard Brejic mention a few sites of power within the area that she had not been aware of. At her first opportunity, she would raid them and claim the power for her own. She knew the naivete of Telendriel, and would claim something for her as well, keeping secret the real reasons for the raids. Although the beasts were cordial, she vowed that she would never be anyone's prisoner again. So, sad to say, another loss for the Beastmen. They did do a little better this time. They gained 8 gold pieces, but having lost, they rolled the low morale result, which means that the next Beastmen game will be at -1 leadership across the army. So, definitely looking like the Beastmen are having a rough time. I know Michael is getting pretty frustrated with them, but we'll see how well it holds out in the long term. On the other hand, it was an excellent game for the Wood Elves via the gold that they looted plus their winning result, which gave them more. Netted 43 gold pieces this game, as well as regaining their mage Alenthia Shadowdawn. So the Wood Elves will be able to use that wizard again from here on out. Now, I found this to be a very exciting game to watch. I know it was a little rough for the Beastmen, just not having things work out for them. But it really did come down, that fight in the middle, if it weren't for the Frenzy statue there, I don't think the Elves would have won it, particularly when they failed that charge with the Arrows of Anoth into the back of the Gore Herd. It really could have gone the other way. But it was a very hard-won fight. You can definitely see that Skip is getting better with the Wood Elves and kind of planning his movements a little better, though he did really kind of stretch his neck out again. I think he likes playing them very aggressively, and so far it's working for him. On the other hand, Michael, I think, is getting very frustrated with the Beastmen. He's having a hard time doing much with them, and my opinion is part of the reason for that is he doesn't really have a lot of the stuff he needs in the army. He needs more chaff. He needs to be able to drop units of harpies or razor gore, something he needs to get in there to cause some trouble, block up some stuff, and take on units when he wants to take them on instead of when they rush at him. I think if he gets that, he'd be in a much stronger position. But so that's another campaign game in the books. Thank you guys for watching. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. And otherwise, we will catch you on the next one. Thanks.